How's it going, Chicanos and those who like to participate and watch what I talk about? I thank everybody that is watching, like my videos and give a comment on what you think. Let me know what's going on. So let me just talk about the Border Patrol. Let's get some information out there that some people may not be aware of. So on the Border Patrol. Alright, the Border Patrol started as early as 1904, and it really started to keep out the Chinese. So the Border Patrol was not even started to keep Mexicans out, because Mexicans always came across so-called United States and the Mexican borderline for working to be able to work. So this was the Border Patrol was mostly because of the National uh, Origin Act and Chinese Exclusion Act of 1822. That's why the Border Patrol was started. So when people want to talk about the Border Patrol, we could talk about that the Border Patrol wasn't even started to keep Mexicans out. Especially maybe if some Asian wants to say something to some Chinese specifically, the Border Patrol started to keep you guys out because of what was going on. So up until 1924, they officially became a part of the United States Department of Labor. Other than that, they were just watchmen. They were a part of the U.S. Department of Congress and Labor, but this time they were official. For the first time, they were officially established, I guess, into being a true recognized federal department in 1924. And up until then is when they started getting more harsh upon the so-called border. And but just like back in the days, uh, they always let people who owned property and farms, they always gave employers easy leniency, to put it. Oh, they always let Mexicans go work for free, and then all of a sudden they had to really start pressing when they became a federal department recognized. So that the owners always had a leniency since back in the days for Mexicans to become over and work for cheap labor. And the so-called government would allow it. Also, it saves money. So that's some information on the Border Patrol that I wanted to share to get to the Mexican Deportation Act. If some of y'all heard about the 1930 when they sent like right here it says between 500,000 and 2 million, whose 60% were so-called born citizens, Chicanos, from 1929 to 1936. So because of the Great Depression, if some of you guys don't know, is the reason why they say the economy fell because of cheap labor by Mexicans. Mexicans were taking all the jobs, but yet they were the ones allowing us to come, or allowing the owners to get free cheap labor at the same time, but that wasn't not anything to be a part of it. They wanted to blame it on us and sent over 500,000 people back to Mexico, and 60% were Chicanos, so-called citizens. So up until after the United States gained Mexico, it says right here, Mexican Americans were counted as white on the U.S. census up until the 1930s. So they used the so-called Spanish identity that we had and labeled us as white people. That's why too we always had this identity of being white and that Latino Spanish identity. They manipulated that into making us feel better, but yet they showed us that we ain't shit, that remember who you guys are, but uh so, we need to recognize that. And if you've seen any of my videos, after that, in the 1930s, when shit got situated, people, Mexicans were being able to come back and stuff was getting right. After that, on the U.S.A.ness, they started counting us as Hispanic and Latino, specifically on our own ethnicity. So even till nowadays, if you guys know, they count so-called Hispanic and Latino people as being white, since obviously they gained Mexico in what 1848 is since they've been labeling Mexicans white people, which is true because if you ask any of your grandparents like mine, some of them got Caucasian labeled on their birth certificate, or it was either Caucasian or black. They didn't really label Mexicans and natives at the same time. Why would they want to recognize us as being indigenous? They manipulated us in that way by so-called using us until it was good enough for them. Then the economy dropped. Then they showed us who we are and put us in our place and said, y'all's getting sent back. We don't care if you so-called citizen or not. So they could do that if they want to now, the United States. People are worried about that with Trump. This is relevant kind of what's going on now. They could just send back who, like in Arizona back in 2009 when they were passed that law to where a cop could just, a regular sheriff, regular city cop could just say, I want to see your green card if you're Chicano, Mexican, so-called Hispanic looking. But see, they've been doing this to us, and we all need to be aware of this false labeling and using us as numbers, using us when it's good for them, and then so be aware of this. Be aware of what happened and how they're still doing it to this day with our people and the border patrol. That's pretty interesting that I found out it wasn't even started for us. And you see that since obviously since the early 20th century, they've always let owners have leniency and let Mexicans come and work for low wage. Cause I had a grandfather, my great grandfather, he worked in the farms, and my grandma, her dad told her the story of his dad. She told me so. My great grandpa, he used to work in the farms of California, and they used to treat Mexicans like straight dog shit, I guess. They used to have to wear these same coats and these same beat up jackets with numbers on them, and they used to make Mexicans dance and treat us like shit, basically. And then my great grandpa said, "Man, I can't deal with this anymore," and left back to Mexico after my grandpa. He was born in the United States, but he was raised in Mexico for a while until he came back, I believe, on his own. My grandma's father. But yeah, so I mean, it's interesting how this has always been going on and it still goes on with our people, and we just need to be aware of this and understand. And so, stay smart, get educated, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of how it's been happening and it's still going on. And so, peace out, Chicanos, and those who like to watch. Leave your thoughts and comments. Peace.